Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a KazInsurance production. In this episode, we discuss what customer service should be. This podcast exists in large part because of Kasimov, the content marketing team inside KazInsurance. So what does Kasimov do? You know how many business leaders need help communicating their story? That's what we do. Content creation and content distribution for business leaders. This provides opportunities, relationships, and a platform for you and your business. Why do we do this? Because at Kasimov, we exist to help entrepreneurs create and share amazing content. Learn more by visiting kasimov.com. Customer service is a bit of a buzzword that is thrown around by many companies that feel just by saying it, they're actually providing good customer service. Customer service is a lot more than just a word. It's a constant and consistent action. Mitch Long does not hold a customer service rep position, but he sure acts like he does. Listen in to see what I mean. And with that, let's welcome Mitch Long of KazInsurance.
It all matters. You know, every practice matters. All the preseason games matter. You know, it's real in that sense that, you know, people take things for granted, that the only thing that matters is the actual game, or the only thing that matters is the actual meeting that you go to, but it's not true. It all matters. You know, it's like, well, you talked about the Patriots in that one article about the game plan for success, and, you know, their first 4 weeks, they're tinkering their roster more than most teams are. They're not afraid to make a change, to say, this was the opportunity. You're not seizing the opportunity. I got to go get someone in here who's going to seize the opportunity, because we're not short-sighted, right? So like insurance companies are so short-sighted to say, well, let's make a decision that's good for us today, and, you know, we'll just abolish all the stuff that's going down the road in the future. When you think about it, life insurance is based off of so much of what's going to happen many years down the road, but they go out and build something, sell something, and that's how they go out of business, because they built something that they couldn't service down the road. Which gets to the point, I guess, of customer service. I get tired of, I think we both did. We were at a company that had this model, and there's a lot of companies, and, you know, they're doing what they have to do, and there's a lot of, you know, decision makers in that process. So I get it. It's not easy, and there's a lot of compliance, but it's one thing to say you do all this stuff. It's another thing to actually do it. And there's a lot of, we always hear corporate speak, and, you know, just, we're going to do service this way, and customers always number one. And, you know, it's just not so. And it's frustrating because we see real people getting put into that machine and getting spit out the other end with nothing to show for it.
Right. And that's, you know, I think it's valuing your customers. And like you said, every company says every time I call a company, it's, you know, we value your call, but go ahead and wait 25 minutes for us to come on the line. And, you know, I think that at some point, you know, you can't save yourself to prosperity. At some point, you got to do the job, and you got to have people that are able to do the job. That's the big piece of it. And so, you know, it's all about, they're looking at their expenses. And so, you know, what I've been saying lately is, it's not how much money you're spending, it's what you're spending your money on. And if you're spending any money on inexperienced people that can't solve a problem, then you shouldn't be spending a dollar. So I would rather see you spend money, you know, the money on less people, but more quality. And I think that's where the point where we've gotten with insurance companies is, you know, you've gotten to the point now that you're not spending much money on service, but you're not doing anything. You know, you're not really accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish, which is revenue, and the revenue is where the money is, not the expenses.
That's right. Well, there's basic training manuals that teach you how to do customer service. I mean, there's classes, and there's college courses. There's just, you know, these big corporations have the manuals on this stuff, but it's the real life application. It's almost the mentorship you need. I remember there was once I was getting frustrated because I was sending out a message to say someone on our team, and I knew the work was getting done because I would see the end result, and that's good. But I was thinking, I had no idea where that was in the process. And not that I wanted to micromanage that process. That wasn't it. It was to say, if I were a customer and I didn't know that you even got my email, what am I thinking at that moment? Are you doing it?
Nothing.
Nothing. And I'm saying it's like empty space. It's like, well, that's not good, because then the client's going to be uneasy. So it was more of a, I call it mentorship, but it in a way was to say, here's what you should do with that. Hey, I got your message. I got your email. I really appreciate it. I'm working on it. I'll be in touch with you. You know, you can even say, hey, it's going to take a while. I'm out of town or whatever it is. Or I'm going to hand it off to somebody else. Whatever you're doing, it makes the person on the other end feel good about it. And then you explain, like, what does that do for the client? What is their mindset now that they've gotten a message back? They're happy. They're excited. And here's the proof of it, because we used to do this, and here's why clients would work with us. It wasn't always about what you knew and what you possibly had access to. It was just they had that good feeling of working with you. And so I think when they understand what that means, that it's real and this makes a difference, and then you start doing it and then they start seeing that makes a difference, they realize, like, wow, this does matter. But the problem is you got mid-level, lower-level management that gets in the way, and they have their ways of doing things. And not to say that they're not successful. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But, and what is success and all that is a different conversation. But what are they teaching these people? So when you call in, or let's say your client calls in that wants to get an update on their insurance policy or whatever they're calling in about, they're getting someone that cannot help them, cannot make a decision, doesn't know what to do, and pushes the thing to somebody else, and we deal with it all the time, and it's frustrating, and that's branding. So people don't realize that's your brand. So when I get off, I'm like really frustrated dealing with John Hancock Life Insurance or Nationwide, or if it's AT&T or DirecTV or whatever that might be, people get real frustrated with it, and they post that stuff, and if you don't think they are doing that, then you're wrong. Get on social media, and that's what people are doing. And that is branding in a way that you don't think it's like the branding because it's not in a commercial, but it's possibly worse because I'm sharing it with all the people that I know that I'm very frustrated with this service and this is terrible and I can't do this anymore.
Right. And that's where I think the companies make mistakes, is because they view the customer service person and the back office person as that doesn't have any effect on their revenue. And I totally disagree with that. And that those people can be really key to, is that agent going to, not just about this case I'm working on or this problem I'm trying to resolve, but if the agent has a good experience with me, is he going to use us again? And that's where the companies have really lost the connection to where good customer service means more business. And so I know now that we're starting to steer our business towards the companies that can be more responsive. And I think you saw the article I wrote about this, but I do some insurance with USAA, and when I call up USAA to add a car or whatever, they're doing it right then. They're not saying we're going to send it over to another unit that's going to take 7 to 10 business days to process your thing. They're actually doing it on the line while I'm on the line, and before I hang up, I've got ID cards in my text. They've already texted me my ID cards, and they've already told me what my new premium is. That's the way where we need to go. But so many of these companies, 7 to 10 business days to get something done. Well, they don't understand. Like you said, if you're not communicating with me, then guess what? I'm not going to just call one time. I'm going to call 10 times. Well, then I'm tying up your service. So you're not saving money. It's really costing you money by not being more efficient and getting things done in a timely manner.
Yeah, we said.
So I really believe it.
No, you're right. Well, you said experience, and you talked about time. So it is that customer experience. Again, these are all huge buzzwords. So we're not saying something that the big companies or the different carriers or whatever that we're talking about, they say it too. They just don't follow through on it, which makes it disingenuous and it's not real. And then time. So time is, my goodness, like everything we do is, my computer's not fast enough. The Uber car is not getting to me fast enough. It's all about time. It's all about how efficient can I be with my time? How can I make things go faster? And I get it. There's certain things that take longer, right? If you want to get your clothes clean, you got to put them in the washing machine, and it might take 45 minutes to get it done. Well, there's a time limit, but if I said, well, it's going to take you 5 days to get your clothes back, you'd be like, well, that's not good enough. I can't do that. I need it back in 45 minutes, or be reasonable, or it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's going to be exceptional. So what's the value in that part? So those things are important. In the insurance industry is it's very methodical. In some ways it's good. They're disrupting it, right? Trying to go through rapid or accelerated underwriting, or algorithmic underwriting, whatever you want to call it. So they're definitely being pushed in that direction, not by themselves. They're getting disrupted by outside forces, by technology, by entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, let's say, that are trying to say, hey, let's raise capital and let's go build something to really speed this thing along. They're having to comply with this, the insurance companies that is, and they're having a hard time doing it. But it is about experience, and it's about that time. But in service, customer service is like such a word, like it's thrown around so much. And I feel like everybody is in customer service. So you've Scott Upton, who works here, and he does a lot of different things. And one of the things I saw is he was working with a client, and the reason the client came back, the number one reason, there's multiple reasons, the number one reason is because Scott gave him a great experience. He gave him a great customer service experience. So Scott is not defined as a customer service associate or customer service representative, but he gave him experience. You are a, let's say, quote unquote, old school salesperson. A salesperson's job is to go out, drum up business, drum up revenue, and sell stuff. And yes, of course, we're going to talk about the value and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's knowledge. You have to understand how to do things. You have access to different products or carriers or whatever you're distributing out there, right? But there's something more to it. And I always try to wonder, like, why does someone work with that person? And there could be numerous factors. They command a presence when they walk into a room. They have great communication style. They're just enjoyable to talk to. They know how to get it. They have great knowledge. A lot of those things, while are important, and they are, right? Communication is one that, people are different in different ways. But one I want to talk about here is the customer service aspect of it. If I can get a salesperson who also can do customer service to a way that nobody else can do it, that's why we work with that person. And Mitch, that's what I say when I look at someone like yourself, when I look even at our team unbiasedly, of course, right? But still, I believe it is because of the service aspect. Now, do we hit 100% of the time? No, not a chance, right? Because there's so many layers to this thing, and we could get blamed because we're the messenger. We're trying to get medical records from a very large medical record company, and they have certain systems and processes in place that don't let you get it fast, and the agent or the client get upset, and we got to deal with that, and I understand that. But at the same time, Who knows how to do it? Because that stuff is not commoditizable, right? It's like, if we go back in the day and say, Mitch, do you know where the body is buried so we can go uncover this and solve this crime? The person who knew where the body was buried and knew how to dig that person up, right? That person is very valuable. And we don't have that person anymore. Now, but again, those are things that say, I know where the bodies are buried. I just use an analogy that a lot of people use. And again, it's just words that are thrown out. I'm only saying it because I've watched it play out. I've watched you play that out in real life, in real situations, in dire situations, to say you knew exactly where that body was. And that is why one of the number one reasons, besides all your good storyteller and all that, and you do have access and knowledge, you know how to get that stuff done. You know where that body's buried.
Well, that's it. And we talked about helping people navigate the insurance because it's not easy. And I have an example of a client that her husband passed away. We had an insurance company. She actually told me that I asked her if she wanted me to help her file the claim. She was a dentist. She was smart. She said, no, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. 2 weeks later, she calls me back and says, maybe I do need your help. And because I'm getting the runaround a little bit from the insurance company, they keep telling me they mailed my check last week, they mailed it yesterday, they're going to mail it tomorrow, So, we had some connections, and I went to some contacts that we had behind the scenes and said, hey, this is not right. The client's husband's passed away. The policy's been enforced for 15 years. There's no contestability. You have a death certificate and a claim form. Pay her. And, she texted me. They sent me a FedEx number. And she texted me the next night and said, $1 million on my front step when I got home from work. And, that experience, that's what them, and I still believe that people want that. They want somebody to help them. And now more than ever, it's hard to navigate this thing on your own. And so I think that's where we have a valuable, benefit to our clients is that we will help them navigate that process.
Yeah. And again, and all of these words that you're using and that what I'm using, navigate is another one. That's a word that's tossed around all the time, but you can say it. It's how do you act on that? Because that's what we'll judge you on. And we talked about before, and I think it was Martin Luther King, like, don't judge a person based on what your beliefs are, judge them on what their beliefs are. And if they say that we're going to help you navigate the insurance industry, we're going to help you navigate this stuff, and they don't do those things, or whatever it is that they say they do, and they don't follow through with it, then you know what's going on, right? And that's something that people have to stay away from, and it's frustrating, right? It's also the team, right? So it can't just be you. So I see you, and I talked about before of us training the team, Stephanie's, for example, to say when someone calls, pick up the phone, call them back, respond quickly, right? We might not be the smartest people in the room, but again, we just talked about the products, the knowledge, all that stuff. While it's very important, that information, we live in the information age, it's all there. Anybody can read about
Right.
it. The consumer can now read about it. Back in the day, the insurance agent had all the information. If you wanted information on insurance, had to go to the agent. Today, don't have to go to the agent. Right then and there, they eliminate the need almost for an agent. As we know, insurance companies are also trying to eliminate the need. Not maybe trying to, but there's reasons why they might, right? They don't want to pay the commissions. They don't see the value in all of the agents. If there's 100 agents in a room, possibly 10 of them are valuable, 90 aren't. So what is it,
Right.
how do we get through that part of it? So it's not just the knowledge, it's being responsive. It's knowing how to do those different things. And that's where I think it comes into play. It's like, how do you decide who to work with, who not to work with, and the relationships and the feeling that you get when you work with that person and all that. But it is knowing, like we said before, how to get things done, but not just because someone said they can do it, by actually doing it.
Right. Well, and that's, to me, and I think with our case manager, you just mentioned one of them, I think that, building expectations. So I like to tell this story, but when my son was in second grade, we went and had the parent-teacher conference. And so we were going over all the things they were doing, what are they doing in English and what are they doing in history? And then she got to math and she was showing us what they were doing in math. And I said, this is algebra. And I said, I didn't do algebra till seventh grade. And the teacher looked at me and said, these kids don't know they're not supposed to be doing algebra. And that kind of hit me was, if you build expectations, then you'll get them. And so you kind of get the expectations that you expect. So the insurance companies right now have a lot of inexperienced people on the phone dealing with people in customer service. You should expect them to be knowledgeable, and you should expect them to be able to solve the problem in one call. That's really what will save you money, is if that person has the knowledge to solve the problem right now so that the client doesn't have to call in again, or I forget to call the customer back, or I don't send an email, or this team didn't do something. If that person you expect them to be able to handle the problem and get it done immediately. That's going to ultimately save you money, because you're not going to have a repeat phone call. And so I think it's just building the expectation of what you want. And, our case manager, we do talk about, if you send an email to the email box, but you don't get a response, then the next day you can't send an email the next day. The next day you got to call, because if that person can't help you, you got to know where to go to get the thing answered. And we just have to be on the phone if we can't get it done through emails and text. And so we try to build that expectation. And then the other piece of it is what we did the other day with our case manager, is I took her out to see some agents. And so the agents who knew her by email but didn't know her personally. And so when I took her out and she got to meet some agents individually and they knew what she looked like, just that one visit will connect them to her for years. And I've got agents I work with that I've only met one or two times, but 20 years later, they're still working with me. And I believe it was because of that face-to-face contact that we had at the time and whatever we talked about. So, yeah, I think that, and we're finding that companies now, I talked to a guy today at lunch, and he was talking about some outsourcing that now is coming back from Mexico, because they said, yeah, it's cheaper to do labor down there, but the quality of work is not as good. And so it doesn't really do any good if you're saving money but not producing, and so we're starting. John Hancock has just announced that they're not going to be using the people in the Philippines anymore. They've eliminated the Philippines customer service area. So they're bringing that stuff home because of the quality. And so we're seeing that start to happen, which is really neat.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me that they would have a hard time managing a team in another country in the Philippines. We actually had someone on the podcast, John Jonas, who actually runs onlinejobs.ph, and he only works with people in the Philippines. And, I'm sure everyone's going to have a different experience with that, but it requires the decision maker, the trainer, to help them through the process. Because he said it. He admitted it. He's like, if you tell them to do it, the first time they're going to get it wrong. Guess what? Second time, they're going to get it wrong. Third time, going to get it wrong. But by that time, they're going to start getting it right. And they're going to be very right. And they're going to be very efficient and very effective and very grateful for the position that they have. But if you miss that early part of the training process, which clearly we know they missed that part of the training process at home. So they're going to definitely miss it abroad, right? So that's not a surprise that they would go to the Philippines and would struggle with that process, because chances are they have some, outdated system that just doesn't work, and they're not going to follow through on it. There's a few different things that you said in there. So we also just had Thomas Wilcher on our podcast for Sportsepreneur. Thomas Wilcher is the head coach at Cass Tech High School in Detroit, Michigan. He's a Hall of Fame high school football coach. He's coached Mike Weber, played at Ohio State, plays for the Cowboys. Damon Webb, who's in the NFL, played at Ohio State. Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's wide receiver, 5-star recruit at Michigan, actually. And he talked about expectations. So I said, well, you get these kids to show up. What's going on when they show up here? He's like, we have great expectations for them. They might not have great expectations for themselves, but eventually they will. They will get to that point because, like you said, they don't know they're not supposed to be doing this stuff. They're going to be pushed. They're going to be put in situations where they can possibly make mistakes, but they're going to have help on the other end of it. So when you watch someone like that and you listen to someone like that, you can't help but be motivated. I get it. That's football versus insurance. It's like, oh, one thing's really exciting, one thing's just not exciting at all. But, there's not a lot exciting about June practice, right? And setting those high expectations of things. But it all relates. That's why business and sports and business and life or all these, they can relate. It's what are your expectations when you show up to work? If you're just expecting them to be average, low man on the low woman on the totem pole, they can't do it. And we can't allow them to make decisions. So the next person that they got to go to a sub manager, then the main manager, then the boss, and then the national district manager. Who knows how many people get involved before you can make that decision? But like you said, great expectations, and then maybe they can get to that point. You're also talking we're talking about labor, talking about a lot of people. If systems could do it, then we would be okay with that. I'd rather not pick up the phone at all and deal with someone because there's a whole process to doing that. And I get it. There's a lot of people calling. You can't staff it. Well, if you're not looking to spend money, well, then maybe invest that money. Instead of investing in people that can't get it done, take that money and invest in your systems, right? So there's a combination, I think, of labor and then the systems, the technology behind it. So you're going to need some labor probably somewhere, but you also need better efficient. So you have the better people that are better trained with better systems. Now there's a lot of stuff you can do, right? So your problem that you're having with the insurance company, I can get online and go through some menu and I can get to my answer. And if I can't get to my answer, I can pick up the phone or someone will call me up and give me the answer. I get it. That's going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy, and maybe they'll get there someday, but I doubt it, right? Because we're about 15 years into, I've always said, the insurance carriers have never been worse as far as the process, the service, all the stuff that they're doing, and I've been saying that for 15 years. So how is that possible? Because that means it keeps getting worse. And I get it, they're stressed out. 10-year treasury yields, which is something that the insurance companies are very dialed into. That's the number. When it hits a 60-year low and then continues to stay low and it goes up a little bit and then goes back down below the 60-year low, they're in trouble. They're stressed out financially, so that's a problem. But that's why, going back to why do you work with certain people, that's why you work with certain people. That's why I go to this person, Mitch, and he helps me out. Not only can he help me out here, he can help me out with these clients, because I've seen you operate with people that no one else could possibly work with. And I'm talking about here, but anywhere else. They couldn't do these things because no one was willing to do that work. It's like in sports, it's that defensive lineman, that nitty gritty stuff. This guy doesn't get any sacks, doesn't even get a lot of tackles, doesn't get a lot of recognition, right? But he's the guy that's setting it up. His teammates know it. His teammates know that without that guy, the middle linebacker doesn't have 150 tackles this year because that guy's doing everything else. It's that dirty work stuff, or in hockey, like the guy that goes in the corners, he's willing to get a little bit bloody or dirty, whatever that might be. That's the difference maker, and that's why I think people, Mitch, would come to you to say, got to work with this guy. And honestly, if it wasn't for Mitch, if it wasn't for the team, if it wasn't for the people around him, I probably just wouldn't even sell life insurance because it's not worth it for me to deal with this because it's so complicated. And that makes sense.
That's right.
That was difficult to do.
Yep, I agree with that. So, I like the analogy, and we talk about football a lot, but I like the analogy of Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a backup. And he was a backup in New England when he first started, and he was worried that he wasn't even going to get a chance. And, a guy got hurt, and he steps in and becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, the guy never got back in the starting lineup after he came in. But if the Patriots had said, well, we're going to spend money on a quarterback, but we're not going to spend money on offensive linemen, I don't think Tom Brady's going to be as good as he is. I think he would have gotten killed because you got to have the guys that are doing the blocking and tackling, and that's what the insurance companies need to be doing. I mean, these customer service people, whether it's claims or whether it's new business or whether it's just your policy owner service, they can make or break you, and it's important for those people to be knowledgeable and to be, to be compensated well enough that they care, but then we also build the expectation of what that job is. I noticed the other day, I watched the Patriots. I swear to you, I think their players play harder. I mean, you look at how they play; they're all playing at top speed, and I think that's the culture. And I think if you build that culture, you'll win. And I think they've proven that. And I think it is transferable to our business or any other business. If you build the culture of winning, you'll win. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. I can't believe we talk about the Patriots as much as we do. But, sometimes you have to analyze it that way. But it's funny because I was which game was it? It was the Super Bowl they just won. They were pulling plays from like 7 years prior. And now, not everybody had been on the team 7 years prior, 12 years prior, whatever it was. They had a playbook with Belichick and Brady and McDaniels or whoever that they could pull a play from the past that they hadn't even practiced. But enough of the people knew what to do. They could fill everybody else in that didn't really know what to do. And they go run that play literally after a timeout. And the other team had never seen the play because those coaches were all scattered around the football world, right? Somewhere in high school and college or who knows. And the players had never seen it. So there's no way to prepare for it, right? They still could have run their base defense and you never know what could happen. But they executed it. The Patriots, that is, execute that play to perfection and it leads to success. And I think there's something to that too, is we've built something here to say like you and I could be across each other at a table and we could like look at each other and you know what the other person's thinking. Shane's
Absolutely.
Here. He's been there. Stephanie, obviously you've known her a long time. But, and not everybody can be like that. You're going to need new blood. You're going to need new people, and that's no different than the Patriots. Bring in new wide receivers. Bring in new linemen, new linebackers, whatever. New coaches. It happens. Turnover's going to happen. These insurance companies are going to have turnover. They all know it. You got people that are trying to grow their career, and they can't grow it there. They have to go to a new company. So we've seen that in a lot of these different companies. But then they lose key people along the way, and they don't have a core. So the teams that have a core, like core leadership, a core person over here, those ones can stand the test of time because there's going to be troubles. There's going to be struggles, whether it's internal struggles or external struggles that had nothing to do with you, right? You show up to the game, it's pouring rain outside, and it's 50-mile-an-hour winds. What are you going to do? Some teams can't handle that. Other teams show up, it's like, no big deal. Patriots, right? They do that all the time. So I think that's important, too, to say to have that relationship where you and I can have a conversation and just we could carry on for days. Sometimes we got to cut each other off, say, I got to go to work, right? But but there is that thing of you just kind of get that signaling. Like you don't even have to be talking to each other. You know where the other person's going, and you know how to ham and egg it with them, right? I can do this, you do that, we'll go on our way.
Yep. And I think that's, I remember that game in Houston. The one that I always think about is Houston went up to New England and really outplayed the Patriots. And it's 45-41, and Deshaun Watson had tore it up, and he had really burned them up. And so they had a 4th and 1 with about 2 minutes to go. If they go for it, the game's over if they get the first down. So they decide to punt. And I looked at my son, and I said, hey, have you seen this movie before? And he said, yep, yeah. I know exactly what's going to happen. And exactly what I thought would happen. New England goes down, scores a touchdown, wins the game. And it's just like, and that's not by accident. I mean, when they repeat it as many times as they repeated it, whether you like them or hate them, that's the culture. That's the winning culture. And if you have that winning culture, then you expect to win, and then your opponents expect you to win. And that's what happens. And same thing in the Atlanta Super Bowl with New England. They were way ahead of the game. Everybody thought the game was over. But guess what? As soon as the Patriots started coming back, you could see the Falcons almost fall apart because they expected the Patriots to win, and they did. And so that's what we think that the insurance companies need to do is create that culture of winning and the expectation of winning, and then you'll win, and you'll save money, and you'll make money. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes too, it changes over time, right? It's going back on the big companies. Sometimes you get so far out there that you've built yourself. You can't turn around the Titanic.
Right.
It's too big. It's going too fast. You can't turn it around. Game over. Right. That happens. Yeah. That's an issue. That's why small business can refine. Now, small businesses have probably more exposures. One big setback could be real problematic for them. A big company, a setback's a setback. There's a lot of setbacks. When there's a bigger problem, and it might take a long time, right? The Titanic didn't hit the iceberg and sink immediately. It took a little bit, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. There's also this evolution thing of or refinement over time. I remember when Aaron Hernandez, let's say, was there, and they had Gronkowski and Aaron, they had 2 tight ends. I remember they were playing the Bills, and all of a sudden they had 2 tight ends on the field running routes. You're like, you can't do that, right? People were like, yeah, how's that going to work? Or is that even legal, right? You could, and they were just dominating. Like, couldn't imagine if he had stayed out of trouble what they would have done if they had both of those guys. And because he was willing to change things up. And I think that's another issue. That's including agents, so insurance agents. That includes the insurance companies. That includes a lot of industries, right? You've gone down this path, and because you've done it this way for so long, you're not going to change up what you've been doing until it's possibly too late. There's so many studies, Blockbuster Video, Kodak, right? Huge companies that refuse to change the way they were doing things because there's disruptions coming at them, but they were the innovators. They could have changed. They could have done things differently, and they're not. Right. And so you have to be willing to evolve to say, hey, we're going to try 2 tight ends. We're going to try, and it might not work, right? We're going to try 5 things. 4 of these things might not work. Maybe that 5th thing does work. And that's kind of what we've seen. I mean, even you said it, right? You come here and you're like, man, we're progressive, we're thinking different things. You know, people have come up to our younger people at the meetings like, oh, I know you guys, you're the Silicon Valley in Charlotte, North Carolina, like, or Silicon Valley company. It's like, no, not really. But yes, we are refining and changing the way we do things. It's just, are you willing to do those things or are you not? And if you're not, well, then what? You know, what happens when these outside disruptions come in and when these changes to the marketplace happen? Are you willing to throw the 2 tight ends out there or whatever that idea is? It doesn't have to be copying exactly what someone else is doing because that happens a lot. Be unique. Be yourself. Be Mitch, who's like I always say, it's like, well, go hire another Mitch. I'm like, you can't do that, right? It doesn't exist. It's like, well, when Brady retires, we'll just go get another Tom Brady. Doesn't exist, right? Hate to say it. We've tried.
Yep. Well, and I think we're, our group is in a good position, I think, because of, there is a vacuum of experience. And I was talking to a guy again at lunch today, and I said, I was asking him about, he was in a business that sold commercial air conditioners. And he said, I said, how is it hard to find good salespeople? And he goes, yes, it is. He said, that some people don't want to come into a sales position. And he said, it's 100% commission. So you got to hustle. And we were talking about that, but new people are not coming into our industry because it is sales and it is 100% commission and it is, but it could also be very satisfying as well. And so there's a vacuum out there of experience and, some of the fiduciary, rules that came out have driven some of the stuff to the financial planners. But a lot of the financial planners, the insurance piece is probably what they know the least. I'm not saying they don't know the business, but they know more about investing than they know about insurance products. And so we are well positioned to kind of meet that need and service that industry as well. So I just think our business model is going to be good into the future.
One of the best things about KazSource is having the opportunity to work with Mitch Long on a daily basis, and then having the ability to bring his thoughts to this podcast platform so you can take in what he says. If you want to learn more about Mitch, send him an email at mitch@kazsource.com or find him on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn or contact me on Twitter at Eric_Kaz. Thank you for listening to our KazSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Until next time, we're out of here. This podcast exists in large part because of KazIM, the content marketing team inside KazSource Inc. So what does KazIM do? You know how many business leaders need help communicating their story? That's what we do. Content creation and content distribution for business leaders. This provides opportunities, relationships, and a platform for you and your business. Why do we do this? Because at KazIM, we exist to help entrepreneurs create and share amazing content. Learn more by visiting KazIM.com.